forecast. Looks like we're going to have a rainy morning this morning, but it should clear up by 9 o'clock and eventually get sunny by 1. Temperatures today are ranging from the low 70s to the low 50s. If you haven't already, make sure you get your tickets to see country star Sarah Evans at the Canyon Santa Clarita on June 4th. Tickets are available at Ticketmaster.com.
This is a Problem Solver Politics production and does not necessarily represent the views of KHTS Radio or its ownership.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up,
T-minus 1 minute,
live out the true meaning of its creed.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
T-minus 50 seconds.
I am paying for this microphone, Mr. Every dollar released from taxation
T-minus 40 seconds.
that is spent or invested will help create a new job.
Chivalry is dead, and women killed it.
T-minus 30 seconds.
They want to get at the table and start acting stupid. All you got to do is come back with, he's your president, he's your president.
T-minus 20 seconds.
I thought I was liberal until I moved out here. And then there's just like this psycho extra level
10,
because they feel like
9,
the way they think everything
8,
should be
7,
is so right because
6,
they live near an ocean.
5,
3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, welcome to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardon Ellis, live in the KHTS studio with
Mark Murphy, attempting to restore stability to the political conversation.
And we are joined with the congressional candidate for the 25th District of California, none other than Suzette Valladares.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's a good thing I have this rock star. Keep up your energy. Wow.
All right, yeah, we're a pretty, what do you always say when you're pitching radio shows? High impact, tough punching, and stuff like that, right?
And we're all sharing the drink.
Yeah, okay, something like that. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about today, especially concerning the charter schools and the assembly bill that just passed with Christy Smith in the office. Got a lot of concerns about that. But before we go any further, Suzette, introduce yourself to our audience who awaits your messaging with bated breath and to hear how you anticipate to take on Katie Hill in the 25th District of California. The floor is yours, Suzette.
Well, thank you very much for the floor. As Cardon mentioned, I am Suzette Martinez Valladares, candidate for U.S. Congress in California's 25th Congressional District. This is actually one of the 7 seats that Republicans unfortunately lost last cycle, so it is a completely winnable seat. We currently have a representative who I feel does not represent this district's values, so 2020 is going to be a lot easier than people anticipate because she doesn't represent our values. A little bit about my background. I consider myself a modern Republican, not to be confused with moderate Republican, because I believe that there are conservative solutions to modern day issues. And I just happen to be somebody who has championed a lot of those issues that Republicans don't traditionally support or have not traditionally championed. I was the executive director over at Autism Speaks. I had a niece who was diagnosed as severely developmentally delayed. She was nonverbal and on the autism spectrum. And I just saw the early intervention services that she received really changed her life. They changed my family's life, and I became a huge, huge believer. I was formerly in public affairs for Los Angeles Universal Preschool. Early learning, early intervention are big deals for me. I've seen them make a difference in my community and in my family. So last year, actually, I decided to open my own business. And that's a whole process in itself.
Okay.
You know, just the whole process of opening that is a lot of work. So now, a month and a half later, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So I found myself being her full-time caregiver. I was responsible for her advance directive. I was her power of attorney. I was literally fighting with insurance agencies while she was on her deathbed. So whether it's been my work with at Autism Speaks, my own experience having been in the hospital, and or seeing how broken our system is when you have to fight for your mother to die with dignity and the services that she deserves, our system is broken and it's not working for Americans. So I also want to see some true immigration reform. I'm a mom. My daughter just turned 2 last year, and boy, so I know, Cardon, you have kids.
Yeah.
And my daughter's 2, going on, I don't know, like 12, 15, 16. She the other day called me bossy, and she said that she was the boss.
How sexist of her. Calling you bossy? That's just a patriarchal adjective inculcated in our children. She should be calling you assertive.
My little wee publican that I'm raising is the next executive. She's an executive, a sassy executive, and that's okay.
Okay, so here's my question for you. Is A, how do you plan on beating Katie Hill? But I guess even before I can ask you that question, I have to ask you, how do you anticipate making it past the primaries? Because Katie Hill, she has no primaries. Obviously, nobody's going to go up against Katie Hill on the Democrat side. That'd be silly. They're going to have AOC on her. You know what I'm saying? Or on them, right. I should say. So it's like Republicans against Trump in the 2020 primaries. Any Republican going up against Trump would be suicidal.
Why would they? She's only sponsored 167 pieces of legislation, signed on to 233 letters, helped lead the final closure of the CMEX issue for this city, which we've been working on forever. And she's been a leader in so many different committees. She's one of the 2 freshman congressman who managed to get bumped to leadership and has shown that she can lead. So why would a Democrat take her on? Of course not, because she's trumpeting those things that need to be done against that Trump in the White House.
That's awesome if she lived in San Francisco. But the reality is that the values of this
San Francisco doesn't let us do. I guess they do all the legislation up there, or is it us that get the chance?
No, what I'm saying is that when you're representing a district, especially when you sold yourself as being a moderate or representing a purple district or pragmatic, and yet your values are aligned with the progressive liberal left of the party, those are not the values of this community. And that's why I'm gonna beat Katie Hill, is because this community's values are not those values.
But wait a second, you just said that you're into, I guess, a big change in immigration reform, which the Republican Party is totally opposed to, or you've talked about a healthcare system, and you've been involved in autism, et cetera. And I know because I had children, some have been involved in the spectrum. And here's the question: we're talking about the party that consistently tries to eliminate the medical health care being provided to the majority of Americans, and now you want to talk about being a Republican? What's going on there?
I'm absolutely a Republican. Thank you, Al Gore. Let me tell you a little bit about my upbringing and how Al Gore had a role in that, right? So Hispanic.
This has gone from bad to worse. Now we're talking about
absolutely Al Gore, my environmental
Thank
hero.
You, Al Gore,
okay, come
right?
on.
Next, we're going to be talking about Fidel Castro and quoting from Mein Kampf or something.
Hey, I was born in Nuremberg. I don't know why we aren't talking about it. Come on.
I was born in Sylmar, in this the area of Sylmar, just across the street here, actually. 2 Hispanic parents. My mom, Puerto Rican. My father, Mexican. My mother was a JFK Democrat. She grew up, she was Catholic. My Nana, her mom was Catholic. And the party of JFK, the Democrat Party of JFK, does not exist today. My father worked in the fields.
Thank God.
Well, I mean that's a left problem, not the right. My father actually and his parents worked in the fields in Bakersfield and Delano. My grandmother worked with Cesar Chavez. My grandmother had 11 sisters. They were a huge part of the labor movement. I understand the need for organizing and unions, specifically private unions. But my upbringing, my parents taught me to work hard. My parents taught me that I could achieve anything. I may be knocked down a few times. As long as you get back up, you will always be successful if you work hard.
And if you go bankrupt about 6 times, is that what the president did? I think 6 times.
Well, hold on a
his
second.
Casinos and his business, and he'd have to restart it. Easy way not to pay taxes. Oh, that's right. He didn't pay taxes for over 15 years. Just wanted to know.
Okay, so here's my question that I have. That's great. Your bio is awesome. At this show, we give credit where credit is due. Something that Katie Hill has been actually quite spectacular at is her ascension to power. I mean, she has buddied up to Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. As horrible as that is, she has a really good ability of getting in with the people that are powerful, and those people that are powerful are going to protect her. I mean, just imagine the amount of funding that is going to be coming into this district to reelect Katie Hill. And it's interesting because Santa Clarita hates carpetbaggers. We rejected Republican carpetbagger Tony Strickland, who moved into the district in order just to run against Steve Might. We rejected and Katie Hill beat carpetbagger Brian Coforio, whose house went up for sale 2 weeks after he leaves, right? And we've now had an interesting effect that actually I'm very concerned about with Katie Hill, is that she's a Twitter and a Facebook superstar, and she's in it with AOC and Rashida Tlaib and with Ilhan Omar, and she's part of that big freshman group of rock stars, not necessarily congressmen, but they're rock stars that have amazing social media accounts.
They're also Congress people.
Okay, Congress people. Sorry, we don't say Congress.
Representatives.
Whatever.
They were elected.
Representatives.
They are the leaders of this country, and they're
No,
out there
I get they're
leading.
elected. However, I've been going through, and something that concerns me is you look at their Twitter followings, and in my estimation, over half of them aren't even from the 25th district.
Right.
And when they put up these little quizzes that say, hey, do you think we should keep dogging President Trump over the Mueller report? And she gets a 95% yes. She's getting all of these yes votes that are making her think her constituents want to keep doing these things, but they're not her constituents. They're all the SJWs, everything from the eastern seaboard all the way to the western. And now we have this strange kind of carpetbagging where we are being driven by dollars that aren't from the 25th getting donated to her. We're being driven by input on social media, not from the 25th district, that's influencing her. Is she really our congresswoman, or is she Facebook's congressman? So my question for Suzette is, how on earth are you going to go up against that? Because talk about punching up. I mean, you're going up against Katie Hill and Nancy Pelosi.
She is bought and paid for by the liberal left. I mean, Bloomberg, Soros.
And it's working.
Right. Well, I mean, it worked, right? She won one election when she didn't have a record. Now she has a voting record.
And it was a huge anti-Trump election, which gave her a lot of wind in her sails. I get that.
Yeah. Well,
and
I
Trump's
mean,
still in office, and so we still have to contradict
the other
him.
things that people, the other thing that people don't really look at in terms of the election, she won by almost 8 points against Steve Knight. Yet John Cox lost by less than 2 points to Gavin Newsom in this very district, right? So, and there was additional information that showed that 98% of Democrats supported the Democrat.
Yes.
Between 70 and 72% of no party preference, declined to state, supported the Democrat.
Yeah.
12% of Republicans supported the Democrat.
Yeah.
Right? So we, in this district, though, I've been talking to voters. I've been talking to Republicans, and they are surprised. They didn't, and actually some of them admit to not having turned out, and they're so upset because Katie Hill is on TV all the time, on CNN, on Fox News. She wants to be a celebrity. I mean, she had celebrities come out and stump for her. The reason why she has so many Twitter and social media followers
had her own HBO show, for
is because she had that Vice show. She wants to be a celebrity, and let me tell you, I'm going to give her that opportunity in about 16 months. She can go down to Hollywood. It's only two hours south, and she can be a celebrity because she's not going to represent this valley, because she doesn't represent our values.
Okay, whoa. You're saying she doesn't rep this valley because she happens to be a leadership position. She gets about in very big communication, and do not take my fact sheet. And she also does something, is she's getting legislation through. I mean, we watched Congressman McKeon and Knight fundle around for, bumble through trying to get CMEX stopped, and suddenly she just makes some final actions, supports everything, puts a
hold on a second,
and stops it, and then she
goes
on.
That's like saying the physical trainer that gave you your last week of training on a one-year diet is the one responsible for
She tried to take credit for the St. Francis. She tried to take credit for it, and then she did give Knight and McKeon credit.
Well,
I worked for Congressman Buck McKeon over a decade ago. Yeah. I know that Congressman Steve Knight was voted as one of the most effective legislators in Congress in 2018
by the Republicans. Right? I'm sure they thought he was effective because he voted almost 99% with the NRA and also with Trump.
Oh, so now you want to accuse Knight of voting lockstep with Republicans, but that's what Katie Hill's doing. She's going to lose this district because she doesn't vote her district.
Well, wait a second. You're assuming that district is Republican, and it's not anymore. It now represents.
Even. You're right.
It's about 55 to 60% heading Democrat because we now have a youth who actually gets out
that's a false stat.
It is.
It's almost 30. According to the latest polling data that we've been able to get, we are within the margin of error. Ballotpedia puts it at 35-35. The latest county stats say it's 32-33, and then the rest are all declined to states or independent. We really have about.
And according to Real Clear Politics, the seat is even.
Yeah, it's it's literally down to the margin of error, 1%, 1/3 Democrat, 1/3 Republican, and then the rest are all declined to states and independents. That's
okay,
it.
so great Republicans, what do you think you're going to bring to this whole district that she's not already doing for veterans, for police, for the other things, for businesses, for the legislative actions to make things happen?
I think that I represent the diversity of this district.
Because?
Because I'm a mom.
Okay,
because,
that makes you
don't be anti-woman.
Hold on,
Watch out. Don't
right.
say
What is it? Do you not support
I'm
women?
not a mom.
No.
I just figured that out.
These are things that don't necessarily qualify me to be a representative, but they get me into the door because when people understand that they can relate to you, whether it's I'm a mom, I'm a woman, I'm under 40. I won't tell you guys how old I am. But all of these things are super relatable for our district. On top of the fact of what I've done, I've represented individuals on the spectrum and early learning. The issues that the district cares about most, I care about.
Yes, but the Republicans don't care about it because the Republican Party, again and again, squashes all our efforts towards mental health improvement and other actions in the more recent action under this president and this Republican leadership. Why are you going to vote against that?
I will always vote my district and my values over party.
If I
have to disagree, well, you're right. There are some specific things I did not agree with. I would not have supported the SALT tax. I think that's wrong for our district. I wouldn't have supported
Which tax?
This state and local taxes, right?
Oh, okay, cool.
So the tax reform.
I thought we were literally taxing salt at this point.
Sorry,
I was like, hold on a second.
Only water, only water.
Right. I will disagree with the president when he's wrong, and I will agree with him when he's right.
But see, all the Republicans make that statement, and they go right out and they push through that beautiful tax package that benefited the top 2% and squashed most of the middle America. And also they kill again and again any efforts to try and have legitimate medical reform. I'm looking at this going, you're making these statements, but you're not doing anything to help because the Republicans don't seem to want to.
But no. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to correct your error there because, for example, Steve Knight, before Obamacare came out, had presented an amazing bill into Congress.
He did.
In which beforehand, in anticipation of Obamacare, they'd done the stats and they found out that 85% of all emergency room visits were non-emergencies. They were just needed to be handled by urgent care. And they crunched the numbers and they partnered up with Walmart, with Target, with Walgreens, and they'd all agreed to have a super pharmacy with a nurse practitioner on hand that could prescribe things, could do basic x-rays. And if it really was an emergency, then you would end up getting sent to the hospital. But now we'd be dealing with a 15% that the public has to pay for instead of an 85%. That bill was not allowed to hit the floor. It was not allowed to hit the floor because the Democrats stopped it. And now Christy Smith in the state assembly has just voted yes on a bill saying that committee chairs, if they don't want to hear a bill, don't have to hear a bill. So now literally in the state assembly run by Democrats, we have the most undemocratic process seen since literally the Soviet bloc was in charge of Bulgaria and wouldn't allow opposition parties to speak. Whenever Democrats say, oh, Republicans never have answers, Republicans never have ideas, it's because the Democrats do not let them hit the floor, do not let them speak, and they're science deniers when it comes to how to handle a lot of these problems simply because they're voting by party.
What's absolutely disgusting is that there is a 2/3 supermajority. This state is ran by Democrats, yet they're still trying to grab more power. But you know what? I would imagine in the near future, the citizens are going to rise up against that because we're going to the gas station. It's hitting our pocketbooks, and they want to tax us more. There's a new tax.
Yeah, they're going to rise up and move to Utah.
Wait a second. They're going to rise up, but they keep putting them into office.
Okay, so we're going to have to take a short break here really fast. We got a couple questions about how she's going to defeat Mike Garcia, a little bit more about Katie Hill, a little bit more about these charter schools. Don't go away. This is Problem Solver Politics.
Choosing the right copy service was a top priority for John Hayes, owner of Hayes Plumbing in Santa Clarita. John's glad he called Sean Milligan at Professional Copy Service.
Well, once we found Sean at Professional Copy Service, we've been very, very happy. We started using him right after our factory warranty had expired on the current copier that we had purchased, and Sean and his guys have been far and above, better than the factory warranty service.
Professional Copy Service, 299-5756, 299-5756. the only authorized Canon dealer for sales and service in Santa Clarita for Santa Clarita Professional Copy Service.
We try to keep everything we can in this valley. We shop local ourselves, and we try to use any local merchant as possibly can.
Call Sean Milligan at Professional Copy Service, 299-5756.
Call Professional Copy Service immediately. They'll save you a lot of time and get your office staff back up to full production.
Professional Copy Service, Santa Clarita's only authorized Canon office equipment dealership. Ask about our free on-site demos.
Southern California Edison wants to help you and your family stay safe around electricity. Whether you're on the job or in the yard, coming into contact with a power line can hurt you. Always keep yourself and any tools or objects at least 10 feet away from power lines. Never approach or touch any downed wire or any person or object in contact with it. Call 911. Go to on.sce.com/stay safe for more safety tips. Stay aware, stay safe.
You know what today is? It's a great day to feed a giraffe. Get eye to eye with one of the world's tallest animals, while it sticks out its giant purple tongue. Why is it purple? It's a great day to find out. It's also a great day to hear seals barking, tigers roaring, howler monkeys howling, and wonder which one's loudest. It's a great day to connect with wildlife at the LA Zoo.
Plan your perfect LA Zoo day and purchase tickets at lazoo.org. The Los Angeles Zoo. Fun naturally.
All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardon Ellis, with Mark Murphy. We're live in the KHTS studio. This is 98.1 FM and AM 1220 KHTS. We are joined with Suzette Valladares, congressional candidate for the 25th District.
A Republican, by the way.
Yes, she is
every day.
A Republican. And we got a quick question for her. We just talked a little bit about how she feels that she's going to defeat Katie Hill once she makes it to the primaries. Makes it to the general election. However, before she can make it to the general election, she's got to go past the primaries, and it's kind of a crowded field. Correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, there's 3 candidates at least that we know of. There's Lockwood from Palmdale. All right, she's an African-American councilwoman who's a very prominent banker. So she's got some pretty solid credentials, and from what I understand, has a good name up in the AV, the Antelope Valley, our friends to the northeast. Also, there's another guy flying around town, no pun intended, who's an ex-Navy pilot, Mike Garcia. Great guy, chummy dude from Saugus High School, who's good-looking, athletic, suave, debonair, and has an awesome resume on paper. However, has never really done anything political before, but has a very aggressive campaign for the seat that you're vying for as well. I've noticed there's a lot of enthusiasm for you. There's also a lot of enthusiasm for Mike Garcia. How are you going to approach that challenge of making it through the primaries with him?
Right. Well, we do have a great slate of Republicans that are running this cycle. You're right. I am the one actually with probably the most political experience, having run a partisan race previously. I ran for state assembly in 2014. I've been a fundraiser on the nonprofit side. It's hard to ask for money for yourself, so I definitely have more experience than either of my competitors here. But this is kind of the reality. It goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. 12% of Republicans voted for the Democrat last cycle. We are not looking...
Why do you think that is?
Because Republicans, even within our own district, want real leadership. They want a change in the direction
But
of
what
the
about
party.
Katie Hill made them think that you were getting real leadership? Because I got to tell you, it seemed like a hate vote to me.
Right. Well, I mean,
it was a hate vote against Trump, and the thing that bothered me about Katie Hill, and me and Mark talked about this a lot of times on the show, was that there's 2 types of politicians. There's a type of politician that's the citizen politician that realizes that in order to advocate for these local issues that they're working on because they're civically engaged, they need more power. And to get more power, they're going to have to go to Washington. And then there's the other type of politician that hates what's going on in Washington, hates the person in Washington, and says, I need to fool all of my constituents into voting for me to go to Washington so I can change Washington. And they don't really care too much and are using the people in their area. AOC beat one of those politicians. Okay, right. The reason why AOC won was because one of the head Democrats had stopped caring about his district and it started caring more about his cronies in Washington, and she just smacked him in the butt with all of, all of her social media, and she overtook him. So I get that. I get that. Oh yeah,
I need
this
to
about
correct one thing. You said the Democrat that was in office. You meant the Republican that was in office.
No, he was talking about AOC.
No, AOC beat another Democrat.
Crowley.
I can't forget his name. Was
Crowley.
Crowley. That was it. Yes, Representative Crowley. So there's something about Katie Hill that made that 12% of Republicans swing her way, and I think we really need to read that situation, or else we do ourselves a disservice. Socrates said, know thine enemy. And you have to know the socialists, what makes them tick, and what makes people follow them, other than the fact that they're useful idiots or whatever you want to call them.
You don't think it had anything to do with the Republican leadership, both lack of leadership?
No, I think it had a lot to do, but I want to know how much, because if we say if it's all the president, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. And it couldn't have been all the president. It couldn't have been all the Never Trumpers. So what about Katie Hill was it that made it so that she won so many Republican votes? I know it was more than just fooling people by having fundraisers at Oak Tree Gun Club and claiming that your parents were law enforcement and all that, making yourself to look like a moderate before you become friends with the biggest anti-Semites in Congress. You know what I'm saying? What is it about her that made it so that she won?
So two things here, because I'm going to go back to the original question, which is how am I going to separate myself from my opponents? Well, the reality is this district wants different representation. That's one of the reasons they voted for Katie Hill, right? We don't want Republicans in this district. I feel don't want the traditional Republican profile, the banker, the veteran, and those are phenomenal backgrounds and profiles.
Well, they're okay with them if they have a decent personality. That's the only.
but I think that this district wants a representative who represents their values, who has a different perspective, which is what you're getting from me, a different perspective. It's not the traditional Republican perspective, but that doesn't mean I'm not a conservative that wants to see conservative solutions for our problems. That's how
I think it was actually a personality issue. I mean, I hate to say it, but we interviewed Professor Kaplan on this show, who wrote a really interesting book, The Case Against Education, and one of his previous works was called The Myth of the Rational Voter. And we don't vote rationally in this country, if we're actually honest with ourselves. And I hate to say it, but Dante Acosta had no enthusiasm. I mean, there was. Awful. I'm sorry, not that he didn't have any enthusiasm.
We had a lot of Republicans that didn't want to support him because he flat out offended a lot of people, and I felt sorry for that because he's a great American. He had great sacrifices for this country. He was a good man, but he was not a good politician.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I echo what Mark says. In person after person that we talk to, they pull us aside and say, yeah, he's got an R behind his name, so we support him, but they weren't enthusiastic about him. And unfortunately, I think Steve Knight had the same problem. I mean, when the Founding Fathers invented the modern republic that we live in, I think they envisioned as our representatives honorable men like Steve Knight. I mean, he's an honorable, hardworking guy. As you said, he was a very effective legislator. He was a good organizer. His work ethic was unrivaled and outstanding. And he was very accessible. Yeah. He'd come on this show. He'd answer questions without requiring you give him before because he had that humility. He was an amazing legislator. But let's be honest. I mean, personality-wise, he probably wasn't voted prom king. You know what I'm saying? And so when you read books like The Myth of the Rational Voter, you come to realize that unfortunately we need politicians with charisma and personality almost as much as we need acumen in politics. So I question how much even your political experience matters. To me, it matters how well you can do on social media and how well you can do in these debates, and that's pretty much it.
There's definitely something to be said about how we as voters get our information now. So social media and the generational gap, right? Because, I mean, even now when you look at Facebook, my mother was on Facebook, my father is on, my 87-year-old grandfather is on Facebook. A lot of the older generation is getting their information from Facebook, and younger generations are choosing different platforms. But if you're
I'm an Instagrammer myself.
I'm on Instagram.
I get all of my news and I get all my directives from the president
Twitter.
by tweet, but and solicitations for funding on a daily basis.
So if you're not using those mediums, you are definitely doing a disservice to yourself. And I think if we were to do an autopsy of why Steve Knight lost, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. But I do believe that part of why Katie Hill won was because she sold herself as being an agent of change. She sold herself as willing to go against party lines. She sold herself as
before going to vote for Nancy Pelosi.
Right. But this is the bill that she sold the voters, right?
Well,
she
wasn't the
she was
bill.
pro second
Change what's
That was
happening in Washington,
rhetorical.
and she did go
No,
do
she
that.
didn't.
You've got
She
a
swore
party.
allegiance to Nancy Pelosi before she even took her oath of office.
And I was very disappointed.
The
She
head
would
of
not.
the congressional leadership. I can't imagine why.
She would not declare or denounce the anti-Semitic, blatantly, wildly
exactly.
anti-Semitic comments of Ilhan Omar and the New York Times cartoon, and instead tried to write a story about how there were neo-Nazis in Agua Dulce that scared her when she was in junior high,
Yeah, but
as though intolerance is only a white man's problem. Sorry, we're only 23% of this county.
And you know what? If the Republican had said that, she would have voted for it. It's all she is all partisan.
Well, you're making up and speculating. What I'm looking at is a Republican Party that
No, it's not
truly
speculating. This is
doesn't
her
make things happen that care about people. They care about the top 2%. They do not care about health care for Americans. They've clearly shown they can't even get their act together on infrastructure, which blows my mind.
No,
so those are your
understand
DCC talking points. I see you're reading there.
I'm looking at issues of what are you going to do for this district. Katie Hill went out and worked on the biggest things affecting this district. She's bringing us more defense work. She got on the committee involved with that. She's doing a lot of things to help the citizens, from Medicare initiatives to veterans bills, et cetera, where Steve and the party, quote, talks about caring for a veteran, but as a veteran, I've seen very little done by the Republicans versus what I'm actually seeing brought forward by the Democrats.
Hold on a second. You cannot say the Trump administration has not made leaps and bounds of progress in the VA over the previous two administrations.
They talk, and they've been destroying a lot of the work.
You've watched those waiting times
I'm a veteran.
Go down.
I know what I've experienced. I can tell you what I'm seeing for my generation is a crime on the part of the Republicans. They talk it, and then they take the money away from us. They take the support away from us. They're doing things to harm the veterans.
Hold on a second. There are measurable quantifiers that show what you're saying right now is patently false, even though it's repeated often by CNN. Okay, we'll have an entire show dedicated to that one, and I would totally love to bring in all the facts and figures. However, we got two more important questions first.
This will be interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty wild. Such as,
are we also going to get the unredacted Mueller report, or are you guys afraid to release that?
Oh yeah, well, we're shaking in our boots.
You
buddy.
should be.
Shaking in our boots.
You should be.
Get your tinfoil hat out too, because the country with a lower GDP than Italy swung our election. Y'all believe that one? And John Grisham wrote a book about it. So anyway, here's the two questions. How are you going to get past the Mike Garcia primaries? Because he's walking around town saying, oh, the GOP recruited me. When the GOP didn't recruit him, Buck McKeon did. And we all know Buck McKeon did because he's trying to get defense contracts in one of the biggest defense contract counties for the Saudis. Because Buck McKeon sold out and went to go work for the Saudis. We all know this, okay?
Typical action for a Republican, either in the administration
No,
or
not
out.
typical. It's because he was the poorest congressman when he left. That's why. He is unfortunately a victim of his own. He's a victim of his own success as not being corrupt while being in Congress, which means you leave Congress as being very
he was
poor.
Not corrupt. He is incorrupt.
So yes, he was a victim of his own success in Congress. I don't necessarily agree with going to work for the single largest human rights violator in the world just to make some money. There's other lobbying jobs you can
get.
One
of our best allies, unfortunately.
Okay, but either way, anyway, the Mike Garcia was not recruited by the GOP at large. He was recruited by some individual ex-congressmen who want to have somebody within arm's reach in that position of power. And that's not to besmirch him. If a good man is in office, I honestly don't care who recruited him, okay? It could be the man on the moon that recruited him. However, he's got a lot of funding behind him and a lot of the establishment in Santa Clarita and these establishment Republicans pushing him. So to me, I see a Suzette Valladares that is a woman, that is a mother, that is a Latina, is politically experienced, has an amazing personality. I mean, just your identity alone means that you're 70% compatible with 70% of our district. That's a lot better than Katie Hill. So if I'm analyzing the general election, I'm thinking, oh, Suzette's going to crush it. However, she can't get to the general election until she gets past Mike Garcia. And I see Mike Garcia doing awesome in a primary against other Republicans because, dude, he's a freaking jet fighter. Dude, he's a local boy from Saugus. dude, our ex-congressman recommended him.
Us
on
cowboys
paper,
are not voting for a guy.
Yeah, on
cowboy,
paper,
space cowboy from Saugus.
So
period.
on paper, he's amazing. I see a flip-flop here. I see the woman that can win the generals not being able to make it past the primaries, and then I see the man that can't win the general crushing it in the primaries, and then Katie Hill just walking through this election like Donald Trump will in 2020. So where do I go wrong in this analysis?
Dreamers of a MAGA believer.
Okay, so where do I go wrong in my analysis?
Whoever does win the primary, or when I win the primary, it will be because you do have to show that you can raise money, but you also have to show that you can manage a campaign, right? Because again, coming back to it, I'm the only one with political experience.
Well, and you're scrappy. I've seen you around town, and you're fighting the low fight, man. And you're down there in the trenches, and you're throwing those punches. And I've gone to a couple of these, I don't want to say rallies, but I've gone to a couple of these events where Mike Garcia's there. And they're definitely slapping on the back saying, oh, hey, you're going to do well, man. Oh, yeah, you're great. And there's a lot of people blowing smoke up his butt. But I don't think he understands the firestorm that's about to descend upon him once the Planned Parenthood interns and the Act Blue interns and the Nancy Pelosi interns start digging through his social media profile, his life, and every other person he's contacted in the past 25 years.
They should.
Yeah, just to hammer him once it gets closer to election season. So I feel like you're definitely a lot more prepared emotionally and physically for the fight that's coming because you are aware of what the fight is because of your political experience. But can you raise that same amount of money? Because at the end of the day, you need that money to buy the YouTube ads, to buy the TV ads, the radio ads.
And I really want to get this out. You're not a typical Republican, and as a result, is the party going to get behind you?
I absolutely think the party will get behind me.
How? Because you talk about you're on another side of immigration. You're on the other side of the medical.
That's not true.
This doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit
what Republicans
what Brian Seltzer says on CNN.
100% for a safe, secure, and modern border. And if we need barriers, wherever we need barriers, technology, boots on the ground, I am 100% for that, which, guess
because
what?
We're being invaded?
Republicans support that, right? I'm a Republican. I support that. But do you know why I support it? You know why I'm so passionate about it? I had a brother who had a 10-year addiction to drugs. The drugs coming through that southern border affect this very community. The Antelope Valley was known as a methamphetamine capital of the world, right?
That's homegrown from here.
When I look at the abuse or the 16,000 known cases of children that were abused at that southern border, and I think that they look like my little girl, that's disgraceful. And it is a direct result of a negligent Congress refusing to fund that southern border.
To put up a roadblock when we have porous ports, airports all over, underground, all the different ways they can come into this country.
No, that's all. She said a modern border. That doesn't mean
I'm just fascinated.
No, we're gonna get a brick and mortar. We're gonna get a mass deposit from Home Depot down at Tijuana, and then we're just gonna have volunteers make a brick wall.
I mean, it's a talking point to say that any Republican just wants to put a 200-mile brick and mortar.
Only the leader of the Republican Party. But what I want to know, why would you pull the? Now he keeps changing it from a wall to a mesh net to a whatever. But what I want to know is why do you pull the funding from the countries that that these people are fleeing from because they have crime, they have poverty, they have assaults, things happening.
Ask that to Trump. I want to know. Ask that to Trump.
To the Republican Party.
No, this is what I support, and when I go to Congress, this is what I will support. I'm a Republican. I will be at that table fighting for what I believe and what this district believes.
But what does this district believe?
The majority of the district believes exactly what I just talked about.
They
want a safe, secure, and modern border. They don't want to send their
Canada
children.
Or from?
They don't want to send a modern southern border.
We don't have a massive problem with a bunch of Canucks.
Yeah, we seem to be going the other
coming down
direction.
through Montana.
Yeah, we're heading into Nevada, or we're going
They want to
over
send
into
their children to school to know that there's not going to be drugs there. That we are stopping that at our southern border.
So we're talking about drug interdiction. why are we focusing so much on the immigrant side instead of drug interdiction?
We're not only it's what the left news is trying to sell.
Whoa, wait.
You cannot
We're not
look.
only focused on
Okay,
that
look, you
at
cannot
all.
look at the drug addiction.
Is it all fake news, or maybe some of that might be
do
reality?
you listen to the president? He has talked about the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking. Well, then how are you going to?
Because he just tweets, and I can't read his tweets because they're not in English.
Okay.
Okay. Well, for a person that's pro other languages, you should be ashamed of that very bigoted comment and learn to speak those other languages.
I should. Since I was born in Germany, I should in terms of learning my English.
So how? I guess I'm still going to ask this question: is how are you going to beat Mike Garcia, and then how are you going to beat Katie Hill?
Right. Well, I mean,
might start with Mike Garcia. How are you going to beat Mike Garcia in the primaries?
I'm going to run a better campaign. Bottom line. And I'm not going to give out my entire strategy here. I'm going to raise the money. I'm going to run a better campaign. And I'm going to present solutions and ideas that people actually care about. When you put me in front of people, people love me and people agree with my ideas. That's how I'm going to win.
All right, rock on. That's not a bad answer. When you put me in front of people, they freaking love me.
They do.
You know?
Okay, so you defeated
they
the
love the
veteran.
ideas. Honestly, they love the ideas and the solutions, and specifically the conservative solutions.
But they're not necessarily Republicans.
I'm going to need people who are not Republican to vote to me to
beat
Katie Hill.
Now you've hit it. But now what do you do against Katie Hill? Because she is going to run an extremely effective campaign.
And you're not just up against her. You're up against Nancy Pelosi. You're going to be getting tweets from AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. You're going to be getting the whole 9 yards, man.
And other people like Barack Obama, you're going to get a lot of people supporting her because she's doing a good job. How are you going to defeat
But
a good
I think
record?
I'm going to get a lot of people supporting me too because of how far left progressive have been. There's going to be, I think, a huge turnout of people in the middle who don't necessarily like the Republican Party and don't necessarily like the Democrat Party, but are seeing how far left. I mean, we're talking about a growing acceptance of democratic socialism. I think about my family. I think about my friends.
Would come into this party.
Well, yeah, because this is a reality, especially for a Latina who has family that's come from Nicaragua or Venezuela or Cuba. That have left those countries because of socialism. They all say the same thing. It starts off.
They left before. They just recently became socialistic. In most cases,
20
with
years
ago.
Cuba.
With the exception of Cuba, and I understand we might call that socialism. It's more like democracy, where you
Nicaragua
have one
was
leader
not
and
recently.
Okay, so hold on. We got to take a
Guatemala
small
was not
commercial
recently.
break. When we come back, we're going to analyze further how she plans on defeating Katie Hill and also how she plans to buck up against the party that she is representing, the Republican Party. This is Problem Solver Politics. Don't touch that dial.
You choose your dry cleaner for convenience. Maybe it's time to choose a dry cleaner that is not only convenient, but does quality work at a reasonable price. Town Cleaners. They're in the center of our valley, and they offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in Santa Clarita. Town Cleaners, a dry cleaner who goes the extra step. Their stringent quality control ensures the highest quality cleaning and pressing for your garments. Town Cleaners on Soledad and Rainbow Glen.
There are times when nothing else will do because you know exactly what you want. You want the Alamo, the taste of true Mexican cooking at its best. At Alamo, you're treated to a taste that is truly Mexican with an atmosphere to match. Enjoy a Cadillac margarita, try a mucho burrito, or sizzling fajitas. Voted the best Mexican food in the SCV and a favorite of former supervisor Mike Antonovich. Alamo Rotisserie in Granary Square, serving Santa Clarita for over 30 years.
Do you like to rock across Africa?
Then the wait is over.
Africa Rocks! Africa's Greatest Hits is now available at the San Diego Zoo! And who could forget 99 red baboons?
Or the African crested porcupine smash hit, I Got Quills to Pay the Bills! Hey, don't get too close.
And the hits keep on coming.
Africa Rocks has all your favorites from 6 different African habitats.
Hungry like a leopard.
Ibex is back.
Harder, better, Fossa stronger.
And a new track from Kendrick Lamar.
Now, Larry.
Yes, Chuck?
A collection of this magnitude, I'd fly to Africa.
Well, don't pack your bags, friend. Africa Rocks is only available right here at the San Diego Zoo.
Wow, that really does rock.
No, it Africa Rocks.
Welcome to Africa Rocks. Experience 6 different African habitats, including our first ever aquatic enclosure with African penguins. Only at the San Diego Zoo.
It's Scream season at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and your hometown station has your way in to experience a superhero collection of the most world-class coasters at the thrill capital of the world. With the most coasters, you can go for a loop at Six Flags any day of the week. Keep listening to your hometown station for your chance to win a day of Six Flags thrills for free. Not a winner? You can still get super deals on tickets, season passes, and memberships when you visit sixflags.com today.
Pure Birth's Pregnancy and Wellness is Santa Clarita's newest birth center, offering holistic prenatal care, water births, labor and delivery, and postpartum care. Owned and operated by California Medical Board licensed midwife Tiffany Gallo, who has been serving expected families in the SCV for over a decade. Pure Births is also a Medi-Cal birth center. If you want to experience a natural birth with the freedom to birth your way in a safe and professional environment, contact Pure Births on Tournament Road near McBean, purebirths.com.
Your hometown station.
I love my Dodgers on KHTS.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardon Ellis, with Mark Murphy and a guest, the 25th District Congressional candidate, Suzette Valladares, who is going to be running against, actually first in the primaries against Mike Garcia, Mrs. Lockwood, and then...
in the battle of the Republicans as they try and figure out which one of them actually represents the party of, I'm not sure what they stand for.
Yeah, and then ojalá...
Well, because you're not one, I get it.
Yeah.
I was, my party left me.
And then ojalá
You should've
against
stayed.
Katie Hill. So anyway, as we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you plan on going to Washington and representing the 25th values, which, is something you feel Katie Hill is not doing, and I think there's a lot of people that mirror that concern.
And I can't wait to hear what those values actually are that differ from what Katie here
This
represents.
is, yeah, I was actually going to ask you, I really love what Peter Thiel said when he got up and he said, I may not agree with every single plank in my party's platform, but I'm here to tell you this is the better way. Do you feel like there's anything that you buck against local Republican culture, thought, official platforms? When is it that you find yourself at odds with your own party?
What's one of the most difficult things is that so the Republican brand, even the Democrat brand, are established really at the national level by the president.
Yeah, it's frustrating as heck.
Right.
Yeah, a big challenge.
So it is a huge challenge, and it's definitely frustrating. And when you have, I believe that, for instance, immigration reform, or I'm sorry, actually, let's go to healthcare, right? My experience with healthcare, whether it was my mom, whether it was my own experience a week before my wedding, I got in a car accident or a limo accident, punctured my lung, fractured my sternum, broke 7 ribs, $240,000 later, and 14 days later, and 6 months, eventually I married my wonderful husband. The Republican Party does a horrible job about selling our ideas and branding our ideas as being compassionate. Right? We are known sometimes as we don't care about
thinker
people.
party.
The thinker party that
Libertarians have
wants
the
to
same
talk
problem.
about statistics. I naturally tell stories because that's who I am and that's how I relate to people.
The Republicans have always told stories, but when it comes down to the vote, they tend to put laws in place which hurt people. They
Total
defund
hogwash.
20 million of the people from who had.
Well,
I
would beg to differ. What right now we're looking at the lowest unemployment rate for the Hispanic and Black community.
Absolutely,
I mean,
this is one of the greatest times for the expansion of the country. So why in the world?
so
would
those
you
were
want
all
Donald Trump, when
derivative of
So we-
policy, though. So
we launch a tariff war? He simply
no,
carried
but
on.
hold
the
on.
things that
But
were
Mark,
going.
you
So now
can't be launching attacks like that when they're not based in actual sciences. I mean, Donald Trump,
science and the
actual
Republican
measurable
administration.
quantifiers. Donald Trump was mocked incessantly by the leftist media in this country when
By
he
the
proposed.
media in this
hold
country.
on, by the leftist media in this country when he proposed his tax plan, because his tax plan depended upon a 3 to 5% GDP, and they said, "Oh, well, if Obama couldn't get us above 1% point something, then how are you going to get us up to 4?" And here we're sitting between 3 and 5% economic growth
just
the
about to
whole
head the
entire
other
time.
direction because of the
So,
impact of this
no,
horrific
they keep saying,
tariff
"Oh,
war.
it's going to head. Oh, it's going to head." For the
It's already
entire Trump,
hitting. tanking.
No, for the entire Trump presidency, they've said, oh, it's going to tank within a week. Oh, and we've got his taxes that prove he's lying. Oh, wait, no. Rachel Maddow didn't. Oh, we've got the Mueller report that proves he's a Russian agent.
Oh,
wait, no,
either
the
Mueller report or the taxes.
I need a tub of doggy treats that say CNN talking points.
Stuff up.
I can just
doesn't
throw
deal
at you.
in real facts.
So I'm going to bring you guys, as if I'm leading the show here, I'm going to bring you guys around.
Yeah, please add some civility to
Just
this.
a little bit, because I want to talk about why I'm a Republican, right? Because
Talk about abortion.
Talk about what?
Abortion. This seems to be very important to Mike Pence and to the Republicans.
I'm making a statement here because I believe in a small government. I believe that you give more power to your local governments and your state governments because every state and every community is different, which is when we're talking about policy that has directly affected specifically minority communities. I do look at our school system, and I look at, I went to a school where I graduated from Silmar High. At the time, the dropout rate was near 50, 60%. And that very same community where now my nieces are going to high school are filled with charter schools because parents had demanded that their children receive a quality education. And that's why you've seen a rise in charter schools. Charter schools, vouchers, when you put competition into a market, whether it's education or any other type of market, quality goes up, which is why we're seeing a rise there. That's a Republican philosophy. That helps minority students. That helps the economy.
Yeah, and we were actually going to have an entire segment of the show dedicated to the fact that Christy Smith just got her bill passed that's going to decimate charter schools. It will literally outlaw SCVI. It'll outlaw what was already, the debacle of the Albert Einstein Academy, which was a debacle for more reasons than just the fact that it was a charter school. It was a debacle before it became a charter school. But it's also going to outlaw Mission View and a bunch of other really awesome charters that parents are sacrificing to go to. And it's sickening that charter schools get held to a higher standard of performance than the public schools do. But all of the public sector employees fight against them. Why? Because it takes away power and money from the teachers union, which is the real reason why the Democrats want the charter schools gone, because the more powerful the teachers union is, the more powerful they are, because the unions run this state. Where the cops, the firefighters, and the teachers unions go is who wins the elections. And the more charter schools there are, the less parents there are that are dedicated to these to the teachers union. So anyway, we're asking how you buck the party. You mentioned something about messaging. And you think the lack of compassion in the messaging is it. Is there anything else that you think you would have approve upon?
I'll let this go only because it's just too confusing and convoluted. I'm surprised you didn't mention the word communism and socialism in that same sentence.
Oh, no.
But that is what the Republicans actually did. But we'll go on.
Yeah, so how do you think you're going to buck the party and turn the ship around? Because right now the Republican ship is headed the wrong direction in California.
Oh, right. Well, I think we do have a new chairman, Jessica Patterson, who is the first Latina millennial woman elected to run the state GOP. What's amazing about our state GOP leadership now is for the first time we have a Latina chairing the organization. We have an Asian American who's the vice chair. We have two.
But are they good just because they're Asian American?
No. But here's the thing.
I think it's window dressing. I'm not actually seeing them change their policies.
I firmly believe that the party now at the top level of the state GOP represents the diversity of our party, and that representatives should look like their district, should look like their party. And I think that
white male, which is the predominant member of the Republican Party.
That's such a crappy talking point.
The only white
it's a crappy talking point.
The only white male at the top of the CA GOP right now happens to be LGBTQ.
Well, that's what I'm pointing out, is you're not representing the party members.
So now we can't win for losing here, I suppose, because now you can't be Hispanic, you can't LGBTQ and be a Republican. That's ridiculous.
All right, so we're going to have to continue this conversation later. This is Problem Solver Politics. Please join us next week for more in local politics. It's been a blast. See you guys next week.